I'm an attorney. I'm a graduate of Yale Law School, and when I was a litigator, and I represented a refugee in her case for political asylum in the 90s, and she had been persecuted as a Christian and forcibly sterilized. So what happened to her is they literally they picked her up, they dragged her out screaming and crying, held her down to a table, cut her open, tied her fallopian tubes without anesthesia, and she said that the pain was like somebody was holding a blowtorch inside of her. It was unimaginable, and they didn't do it in a sterile environment. So she ended up with a massive infection, which caused her to have chronic back pain, chronic abdominal pain, and chronic migraines from the time that this happened to the time that I represented her. I believe that she was permanently disabled by this. And this is frequently with these forced sterilizations in China. They're not carried out by highly trained gynecological surgeons. I mean, you and I could probably get as much training as some of these people in 2 or 3 weeks to go out and perform these sterilizations. So anyway, I left the practice of law and founded Women's Rights Without Frontiers to just sound the alarm about what was happening on the other side of the world. I mean, China has a fifth of the world's population. So 1 in 5 women is living under a totalitarian regime where they are subject to forced abortion.
Reggie, can I just interrupt for a minute? In that frightening, horrific case, which obviously represents thousands of, tens of thousands of millions, specifically, was that done because she was a Christian or connected to something else?
No. Okay, so she was persecuted as a Christian, and that's a whole nother thing that I can talk about. But
Yeah.
but the forced sterilization had to do with, I believe, quotas, because she had not violated the one-child policy. Or actually, she had a second child, but I think she had permission because she was from a rural area. So there's kind of a two-child policy in some of the rural areas. And so, but at that time, they had abortion quotas, they had sterilization quotas, and they would just go out and abort people and sterilize them, because if the cadres did not meet their quota, then they could be disciplined, and in fact, their entire town could be disciplined.
Right, and this is what we expect from communism. In my view, there's a spiritual battle going on here as well, but perhaps that's for another show. But we have here, I think also you refer to it as the womb police. And so we had now forced sterilization, forced abortion, and now it's getting really, also very weird. A kind of a forced procreation is now happening, right?
Well, yeah. So it depends, because they're a very racist society. What they want is they want more Han Chinese. So they are doing everything they can to encourage people to have more kids at this point, if they are eligible. And I'll explain that in a sec. And they're also committing genocide against the Uyghur Muslim minority population in Xinjiang. So it's a situation of wanting to increase the Han Chinese population and decrease the minority population. Now, I've got to say this, okay? China has moved from a one-child policy to a two-child policy to a three-child policy because they need more kids. I mean, they have a rapidly aging society. They are their workforce is becoming depleted. It's going down, but they have maintained this coercive population control infrastructure so that the new rule is that all couples are allowed to have 3 children. That means that you have to be a member of a couple to have a third child. So single mothers are still subject to forced abortion. Now, under the two-child policy, China reported that it committed approximately 8 million abortions of quote unquote extra pregnancies. And so those would be forced abortions, because the extra pregnancy would be an illegal pregnancy. And I believe that most of those were of single women, and those forced abortions of single women are still going to continue, plus forced abortions of 4th children under the 3-child policy.